Hey everyone, in this video we're going to work with analogous colors. Now analogous colors are any three colors right next to each other on the color wheel, analogous colors. So for working with analogous colors, why would you want to do that? And the reason is these three colors are going to say what you need to say. It's not so confined and specific as a monochromatic painting. There's a little bit more to work with, but it's still a very strong unified statement. It says one thing very well with just a little bit of color variation. So it's usually much preferred than a monochromatic painting because you get a little bit of a range to work with. So you have one thing you want to say, everything's harmonious, everything works together, so you have an obvious thing you're doing. Typically, we're going to talk about cool and warm colors. Typically, to be most effective, they'll be all cool or all warm. That'd be even better. That's how you work with them. I want to show you some examples of some analogous paintings. So this is one I did last year with, here we go again, red, violet, and then the other colors were red and orange. We just see a stronger use of the red, violet. So those are my three colors. You see how it's harmonious. I have some other, this is this other painting I did. I wanted to show you some other just kind of samples of analogous paintings from the past. Are this is just three colors. This is yellow, orange, and just painted with a sun. You see how it gets a nice warm look and a little bit of a range of color instead of just orange. Here's the use of yellow, green, and green. It looks fairly colorful, but it's not. Just analogous colors, one strong thing it wants to say. This is tempera paint again. And of course, mixing, you can use a little black if you want, but that's what was used to create this brown. Same colors, mixed them together and added a touch of black to that to get the brown. One thing we used to do, if you're here in the classroom, I just wanted to show you, is an ink wash painting. So what I would have the people do is just draw a flower, maybe keep it kind of simple. So that would be the first step. Then they would paint it in with just tempera paint. So it's not especially pretty painting at this point, but it's not supposed to be a pretty painting. So a heavy paint with the tempera paint. Then you would just paint over the top of it completely with ink. And you can see it is the paintings under there. You can see the flower and everything. I made the same painting for all these steps. Then once the ink dry, the painting would dry, then the ink has to dry, and then you would wash off the ink. So what would happen if you would end up with wherever the paint stuck to the paper would wash off, but it would lightly color the paper, and in some places the ink itself would stick. So you have this weird textured thing, and then you would go on and maybe add a little bit of paint on top of that. So it's a really fun technique. You'll see this in illustrations and so on. It's an ink wash. We won't be able to do it, but it's one of my favorite things to do. Here's a student sample of an ink wash painting. And you can see it's a really pretty, interesting little painting. They didn't like it. Sometimes people get really mad at me because they do this really intricate thing, and I'm like, oh no, it's ruined. But actually, it looks pretty cool. So those are some, anyway, but these are also analogous. This would be the red, violet, and the violet were chosen for this one. This one is, of course, green, green, and blue. Anyway, kind of a fun thing. So what are we going to do with these? We're going to be working with two ideas. I'm going to let you choose what you want for subject matter. If you like this kind of idea and you want to go ahead and do a flower, that's fine. You can look it up, or you can just kind of freehand draw one, which is what I did here. That's up to you. I do want to mention, don't be shy about changing colors. Leaves are never white, right? But this is a piece of art. People enjoy these changes of colors and things. So don't feel confined to the color it sort of has to be, but you can feel like you can be creative. So my idea I was starting off with was I was thinking of maybe working with some different colors, some blues and greens, and then, so this was my idea for my flower, and then I was going to actually leave the flowers white. But I had another idea. You could also use fish for a theme. So I did a little sketch. What if I had three fish that were kind of all swirly looking, And that was my idea for my painting. And then I decided that was way more fun. So I went ahead and sketched out my fish. So I'm going to paint fish. Yours could be fish, flowers or fish, right? You get to choose. 3 colors in a row. So what I wanted to choose, you can see I've marked it off here in my palette. In my case, I wanted to work with blue, green, blue, and blue, violet. So this, if it were a complementary painting, it'd be cool to have orange fish and a blue background, but that's not what we're working with. They have to be 3 similar colors. So at this point, I'm going to paint these in. Notice I marked them in my palette again so that I can be sure and not accidentally use colors that I'm not supposed to be using. So this is my blue violet. And then I get my wait a minute, blue violet, right? Looks very violet right now. And then I have my blue, and then I have blue green. So I get kind of like a taste of some different colors. But my blue green is looking very blue right now. So those are my 3 colors. And that's going to be what I use for the painting. So save this when you've chosen your 3 colors, and then you're going to turn it in with it. As far as which piece of paper do I use, I'm going to use, I'm having you try all these different papers. So try the one that's in the middle that's really tall. So that's what I used for my piece of paper here. They're all going to be just a little different. You should end up with a couple extra pieces and be able to choose the papers you like the best. So this is the one that's a little oversized. So I have my 3 colors to work with, my blue, my blue green, and my blue violet. And so my blue is kind of right in the middle. And so I was thinking of kind of having a blue-ish background. And then I'm going to add, more colors to the fish and see if I can get them to stand out a little bit. So for my background, I'm going to make a wash. Remember, and you guys, what you could do if you want to paint along with me, you could stop the video and get your drawing finished. You don't spend an extremely long amount of time drawing. I'm trying to, I just drew mine in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to save the time in the video. You can see it doesn't totally look like fish. That's okay. So I'm getting this really wet because it's going to be a wash. I'm adding some water to my 3 colors to make sure, whoops, they're ready to go. Added some of the turquoise. The turquoise is not one of my options. That's like a sky blue. It doesn't really count. So I hope I don't use that accidentally. Okay, so what I want to do is some type of washy background and then kind of let it dry. So mostly with my middle color, which is my my blue. So I want to get this going. I just want it to be wet into wet. I have a piece of paper towel in case something happens. I got a big drip here. I know that's going to get on my fish. So I'm drying some of that up. More blue. And then, a lot of this is pretty wet because it's a wash. I got it wet first. And then also the way I paint it, I can create some movement around the paper by having you kind of follow my blue around. So you can see I've kind of done some stuff with the blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of some other colors. A little bit of the blue green. I don't want tons of it. So that got kind of dark under there. Also not really blending them together. I'm just going to let the blending happen on its own a little bit. A little bit of the blue green, and I'm going to have a little bit of the blue violet, maybe here out towards the edges, so it looks like the water's deeper away from the fish. What colors you choose or how you choose to do this, very much up to you. And then I thought it'd also be fun. So it's a little bit of a wet into wet technique. Something that looks kind of cool. If you splash a little bit of water on it, you end up getting some white spots. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. See, I got some right here. Let me show you up close. Can you see? All right, right there. I splashed it a little bit and I got some, that's kind of a fun little watercolor technique. Be careful when you use it. And then what I'm also going to do is I think I'm going to use some salt in my background. So whatever you've chosen, if you want just kind of a background, you want to keep it kind of fun, try that. So a little bit of salt. And I'm gonna, it's gonna look a little bit like the, where I've splashed that. Now, because my paints are a little bit on the light side, the salt's not gonna be ridiculously dramatic. Okay, now I have to leave it alone and let it dry. So I'm gonna, now that I've painted the background, I'm gonna take a break and then come back and paint on my fishes after a little while, after they've dried. Okay, I let my painting dry. I actually let it air dry, and then I used a little heater, which would be like using a hair dryer to get it even more dry. So one thing I want to say, if you did use salt like I did, take the time and get rid of your salt. Brush off. I can hear that there's a lot more in there than I thought. Brush off any extra salt, or it might end up somewhere where you didn't want it to be. And so do that. And then you can see I got some fun salt techniques. And I'll probably add a little bit more to the background to make it look, break it up just a little bit more later and have an idea. So I apologize if the quick kind of expressive painting than a demonstration is not your thing. You can go a lot slower and more carefully. I just kind of wanted you to get the look and feel of a watercolor painting. So this isn't the only approach. I just wanted to give you some approaches. So one thing I decided to do is I think I'm going to have their bodies use a lot of the blue-green color, so it kind of comes right here. And then I'm going to use the blue and the blue-violet and do some line detailing at the end. So this is my idea for how I'm going to finish off my fish. So what I was thinking of doing is kind of fading out the colors. So if I start here with the head of one of my, I don't know what kind of fish these are. Let's say these are mythical carp. That's what they are, obviously. I can add, I'm going to add a little bit of more of a concentration right here of my blue-green. And then I'm going to let it kind of fade out as we move up the project. Now, if you get things you don't like, remember you can use your paper towel and soak up things. A little bit too much water on that side. And then I'm just kind of adding some water here to let it kind of figure that out. Okay, and I actually kind of like the way that is, so I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to leave that alone. So the idea was more concentration of paint here and then fading it up. So now I'm going to do this one, the same thing, because I want them to look like, okay, we don't have a lot of rules here, so it's up to you. They could all look different. You just have your three colors and see what you come up with your three colors. So I'm getting this wet again. The next fish, doing the same thing with the this idea I had for the blue-green. So I'm gonna put it in a little bit. Remember, you can't paint so that you can't see it. So you have to be able to see through the paint, so it has to be transparent. And then I'm gonna kind of let this fade out here. Didn't really want dry brush, so I'm going to add some more water. And then letting it, didn't really want to fade over here, so I'm pulling it with my brush over to that section. Don't know if I like this. It's kind of boring to me. So maybe I'll dab at it. Maybe I'll add just a tiny bit more. So I like the way I kind of got some variations there in the front of this one. So that's what I did for the front of that one. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time to the other fish. I got the body of the fish wet, and then I'm going to add my one color. So how you add your colors, I would say definitely do some planning. Definitely you know, save the strongest colors for your center of interest. You know, so if it's all kind of spontaneous, but at the same time you're always thinking composition. What would look good? Here we go. That was kind of a nice little thing, but it's not what I needed at that location. And now I'm going to let these colors move their way back into more of the fish here. Add more water. It's a little darker than I wanted, so I'm going to soak up part of it. And then back here as well. Didn't want it right there, so I blotted out. Also, while it's still wet, I thought it'd be kind of fun to splatter a little bit of my blue color so it's also on the background. So going back to my blue, I'm going to put some on the brush and just splash it. So it's going to, wherever it lands on the actual fish, might spread around a little bit, but I thought it'd be fun to see it on the background. And also I'm going to concentrate this here in the middle of my painting. So it's giving me more variety to the fish. It's also giving me, breaking up the background even a little more. So there's different ways of splattering some paint around. The way I'm doing right now has the most control because I'm getting little fine things because I'm using a smaller brush that's pretty stiff. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to stop. So you can definitely have some paint splashing around if you want. Oh, here, I'll show you what that looks like up close. It's not much, but I thought it'd be fun. Okay, now what I'm going to start to do is start to put in some details. So I have a couple of other colors I can use to pop things out. I want their faces to stand out the most, so I'll probably just end up with some line work with the blue-violet there. So now I'm going to say, where do I want some blue? So maybe I'm going to work with using my round brush now, and I'm going to do some, not ridiculously detailed, but some kind of line work just to support my idea. See how I'm taking my brush and twirling it here to so I'm keeping a point. So I'm going to work on the, what's that called? The thing on their back, and just kind of do some line work there, and their fins on the sides. And then I can always do some more if I want to. Like I said, I know I'm going to be adding more to the face, especially with the other color. So I'm doing them in the order that I painted them, so that if it, you know, it's a little bit wet, it won't matter because it's starting to dry. So I'm painting on mostly dry paper right now. And I'm doing brush line. So I'm painting in kind of looser details. I still have a fairly loose part of my design, partially blue lips. And I'm purposely not necessarily painting exactly where the lines are. Make it a little darker, twirling my brush. So these are larger lines, and I'm having some fun being creative with them, and maybe inferring some details when I have a chance to. So it's maybe starting to look like these unusual flowery fish. Maybe not. Maybe this is not your thing, but I'm just showing this is how you can have some fun watercolors. Like I said, your pencil lines can show at the end of the painting. So I'm going to work in some of my darker color, and then see, I may have to go back and do some more details here and there later. Actually, I'm going to just mix this here. So I had these fish eyes, and I'm not quite sure what fish eyes look like, but these fish eyes look like that. I'm going to kind of enhance the mouth again, and I think I'll go maybe this line along here and making this a little. So I'm going to help you find my details a little bit more this time through. Yeah, I kind of like that. So anyway, so I'm using all three colors, so there's a lot more variety to the look of it as opposed to a monochromatic painting. I'm using a little bit of blue with my blue violet just so it makes sure it harmonizes well. See, this is really wet right now, so I'm trying not to let those two touch each other. I'm just sort of indicating possible shading right there, or highlights. I didn't actually make them super specific. I don't want to tell my whole story. That's another nice thing about watercolors. You can kind of infer what's going on without maybe saying everything that has to be said. So I don't need too many details back there. So it's just kind of a fun, splashy painting, literally. And I may not go back and add fine details, or I may. But you're getting the idea of working with the three colors, doing some planning as you paint. Here with my line work, see, you can go thicker and thinner, and then kind of going over them, not necessarily lining up things, because we get this wonderful thing that only watercolors can do, where it's expressive and fun and leaves around a little track or evidence that an artist was here painting this, and maybe the artist wanted to tell you something about how they feel about fish or something. So if I wanted to, at this point, I could make some decisions, like, is this standing out enough? So how to make things stand out? I contrast things. So if I wanted to, I could actually go back, possibly make some of the background in some places a little bit darker, or darken up the fish in some places. So I'm not sure I want to do that. I might want to go in with my smaller brush and do some really fine detailing. For instance, I could paint some gills in. That's a little bit darker than I'm supposed to paint. Remember, you're supposed to be able to see through. So I'm going to go in and maybe just, as if these are important details on a very silly fish. So a few finishing things, and then I think I'm almost done with this particular painting. I'm just going to let it be expressive. So your painting might look really different. The idea is it's kind of fun. You're experimenting with using limited colors. Like I said, with these colors, I wanted you to, you kind of have one thing you want to say. I'm just using accent line here and there at this point to kind of help the painting look more finished. You know, and this is kind of nice, leaving things open. You don't have to solidly outline everywhere. This fish kind of has more of a fish lip. There's probably a name for fish lips. I don't have no one. See how that's bleeding right there? Actually, I'm going to leave that alone. It's kind of nice. Anyway, have some fun with this. Like I said, you had your choice between flowers or fish. I've never done this sample painting before, but it was very much fun to do. So with these types of watercolors, expressive and loose, doesn't have to all line up. It doesn't have to tell the whole story. Whatever the story is, I don't want to drop. You don't have to say it all, right? Let's get, I was going to add some gills to these guys too. And okay, that's about done. You can write your name on it. I would probably paint on it and paint too much, so I think I should stop before you've done too much on the painting. So you're getting the idea of the fish coming together. Maybe it looks like you're about to feed them or something. So very much a fun painting, whether or not you did flowers or whatever. If you just don't like your painting, flip the paper over, do another one. But I hope you had some fun with these analogous colors. When you go to send it to me, please make sure you let this piece kind of stick off to the side so I can see that you painted in your 3 colors. Take a photo, send it in. I hope you had some fun with this.